They say again. So he explained what is the meaning of Chukas HaTorah, that we have to draw into our observance of all the levels of mitzvahs and even understanding and our learning, which is seichel, which is intellectual and understood. So we have to draw into it the badrege of chukah gzerim elfanai. It's a decree before me. It is the level of golif glifo v'tiri law, the impression, as it were, the words, the letters, in the pure, in the supernal purity, which means it's utterly beyond seichel. It's purely divine. We have to draw that into the understanding level of observance, of Torah learning and of observance. And the question is, how can one at once simultaneously can't be consciously driven and permeated by both seichel, because the Torah itself demands we understand, and we explained why. And the Torah is saying, that you must observe beyond seichel. Beyond seichel stam is ordinary chakika. Beyond seichel, beyond seichel. That's the chakika we're talking about. That's through and through. So it's utterly beyond seichel. So how can one simultaneously fuse both levels of connection, of experience, as it were? So this he's answering by saying, we started to answer the question yesterday. And the answer is that in addition to everything else we pointed out, in explaining the difference between the two levels of chakika, there's now another element. And the other element he explains now is that when the precious stone is engraved through and through, so then that means that the entire stone's identity is that which is engraved in it. It's not, that is what the stone is. The letter that's engraved in the stone is not just inseparable from the stone. That's what the precious stone now is. It is engraved letters. So what does that mean? Mizeh moving, picking up the text now, a third way down. So therefore, we're going to take this understanding of a level deeper than we did before. Then we explained till now, and that is that the connection between HaTorah and this kind of engraving, it's not only with respect to the deep essential level, because it's part of the stone itself, namely, and that's expressed where it became Chukah the paradumba. That's the statute of paradumba, where it's engraved in the divine, as it were, in this essential level, and therefore we need to do it from our essential level, which is Kabbalah Soil. She'ein l'malkim b'seichel klal, utterly, totally beyond the faculties of intellect. In addition to that, engraving now means that the stone says the letter. The stone is a letter, or letters. That's what this precious, not letters in the stone. The stone is the letters. And the letters are the stone. So what does this mean? Letters, it means a letter is a communication. It's a seich. A letter is saying something. It's a word. And it's not just one letter, it's many letters. Thousands of letters. Tens of thousands of letters. Hundreds of thousands. Millions of letters in Torah. Billions and beyond. So all those letters are h'tשכ. So those letters are words, but they're words that are engraved words. The words are engraved. The words are nothing other than the stone. So what does that mean? Elo gam mitzad ha'ish Yisraeli shebeich kol krikin ha'kabbalas oil. So as you're saying, first of all, the same way that the stone is now the letter, the same is true of the yid, that the yid is engraved with the Kabbalah's oil. So Ashachki Kazuche, that is called Mitziyusa, so this is engraved with this essential oneness with God, which Kabbalah's oil means. It's engraved in him. So it's engraved in him through his entire being, which means his seichel is also engraved. He'll spell it out. Binyan Bazeh, Shadova, Shanechach Baal, Medugmas Esech Hakika Bevan Toiv. So something which is engraved in the person, like the letters engraved in a precious stone, even though the letters are engraved within him, and unlike written letters which are written on the parchment, this is the low level of kikah, the lower level. So the low level of engraving, even though it's engraved in him, even though it's engraved deeply in him, still it doesn't reach his essence, because it's not through and through. So here's the crunch line, and these two lines here need to be understood. If it doesn't touch the essence, then it will not permeate the manifestation's most external level either. Obviously. Because the external letters only exist as an expression of the essence. External levels of the soul are all, at the end of the day, the expression of the essence. God's external manifestations are expressions of Him. So if the engraving, talking about a yid now, if the engraving by a yid doesn't touch my essence, they will not manifest in my external expressions either, completely, truly. Let's see those words inside. This is the whole Maamar, has these two lines. It's not going to be through and through to the depth of his, to the greatest possible depth. It will not become absorbed and established well in Yiddish, eingekapt, engraved, even in his external faculties of intellect and emotion, etc., they'll not be engraved there either if it doesn't touch the essence. And if it does touch the essence, it will express itself in everything. This is the Maamar of HaTorah. That's what, if it's not touching the essence, that's the low level of engraving. As we said, it's Kabbalah's oil if necessary. If necessary, okay, I'll do what has to be done, and I'll give it my all, and I'll sacrifice. We're talking about a level not summoned upon command, so it's an external. That level of Mesiras Nefesh doesn't define him. Something he summons when he needs it. It says Mesiras Nefesh, it says h'tשכ, you're talking the low level of engraving. It's a medical level. But the higher level is not when needed. That's who I am as a Mesiras Nefesh Yid. He's a Kabbalah's oil Nick, Kabbalah's oil Chosid, a Kabbalah's oil Jew. That's who he is. And the way he learns is with Kabbalah's oil. And every expression of him is with Kabbalah's oil. He feels with Kabbalah's oil. He learns with Kabbalah's oil. Not a contradiction, because that's who he is. Which means he learns because you want me to learn. I feel because you want me to feel. I question because you want me to question, I answer because you want me to answer. That is conscious front and center in all his manifestations of experience and pleasure and understanding and feeling. Because why? He is a Mesiras Nefesh Yid. Not he will. He's prepared to be if the occasion calls for it, which is the low level of Chakika. So it's not a contradiction to learn and feel and be engaged and resonant and be a profound intellectual, a brilliant intellectual who writes Svarim, is Machadash Kedushim, and extremely innovative and a great teacher of Torah in a very individual way. His individuality shines. It's not a contradiction to Bittul Mesiras Nefesh, because on this level, all of that is not his career, and none of it is in order to. There's no agendas. There's no agenda in anything that he does. It's all, this is what God wants now. Finished. So he's explained, at least for us in theory, how it's not a contradiction of seichel, profound seichel, and absolute Kabbalah's oil and simplicity and pshitus, surrender beyond seichel. Continuing now the 4 lines from the bottom of the page 51. Inyan HaKabbalah's oil, Yosi Chokuk Eitzel Ish Yisom Evel Ever, but every Jew is, this is the truth of every Jew in essence. It's engraved through and through. His whole identity is, he's a servant, a Kabbalah's oilnik. If that's his whole essence, then there's no question. It'll express itself in his most external, experiential faculties, understanding, feeling, pleasure, etc. Because all of his external faculties, they don't come in a vacuum, they come from his essence, but usually there's a disconnect between them and the essence. If he engraves, that's the avodas, to engrave God's will in his essence, then there's no disconnect between the external expression, which is the self, and the essence, which is selfless, which logically they would be. How can you be full of self-expression and be selfless utterly at the same time? That's what he's talking about. That's possible if that's his whole metzius. So why is he full of self-expression? Because you want self-expression. That itself is selfless. Let's see 31 order. Yeah. Order 31. Again, friends, this is very much the teichen, the content of the Maimah HaTorah that the Rabbi gave us. This is what he's talking about, that Moishe Rabbeinu's whole being is to connect Yidden with their etzem haneshama. Order 31. Yeah, that's a Bekudas Avodah Perek. See, Kudas Avodah of the Rebbe Rashab, chapter 5. Shdavke bechinas yechide. It's dafke when one touches the essence level of the neshama. So it's the paradox. What's yechid? It's utterly beyond any defined expression of the soul. And yet, when you touch that level, it will affect every expression, every level. Whereas if you're only working at one level, you're not going to affect other levels. Person is emotionally engaged doesn't mean he's intellectually engaged. Intellectually engaged, it could stop, not go down to emotion. Chesed could be chesed, not gvura. If we're locked into particular expressions of the self, of ego, of the egotistical, egotistical, not in a bad way, but me, I. So I'm into this, not into that. One thing doesn't lead to the other necessarily. But if it's the essence, everything is included. Not because it's dafka, because it's none of them. Not motivated, not because he loves, not because he fears, not because he understands, not because he wants, not because there's no motivation, no drive. The drive doesn't start. It doesn't start with the experiential, conscious faculties of the soul, which, as I just said, if that's where it is, as we see, it's going to be one direction, not the other, because this I enjoy, I understand, this I don't. My orientation, my makeup is inclined this way, not that way. I'm a chesed guy or I'm a gvura guy. So it's going to be one to exclusion to some degree of the other. But if it's my commitment stems from my essence, which is selfless, bound up with God, then it will express itself in every expression of my soul. Because you want chesed, you want kavura, you want my seichel, you want my ratzon, you want my tainug, you want my simcha. Dafke, when it's from Yechida, then it's everything, even though Yechida is utterly beyond them all. Not really, even though it's because it's beyond them all. Back to the HaTorah. So Dafke says, he says, the Dafke from the level of Yechida, the soul essence, which we're talking about, this is the engraved through and through. Even though it itself is utterly beyond any of the defined expressions of the soul, intellect, will, emotions, and all of their complexities, utterly beyond that. But the paradox is, well, not the fact is, but it's the essence of all of them. It's the essence of all of the conscious faculties. And it affects even the corporeality of the Nefesh HaBahamis. And that's when it's turned around. Dafka from the Yechida level. The transcendent level of Chaya, which is transcendent but not essence, which corresponds to the engraved letters, but not through and through, will not transform the animal soul, will not manifest in every aspect of my life, not fully resonant and not fully devoted with every ounce of my persona, being and body, and even Nefesh HaBahamis won't happen unless there'll be glimpses of it here and there. We'll squeeze it out, but to be in that state, that's only from the Yechid level, from the essence level. Ayin Sham Barichas. This is the theme of HaTorah. It's also the theme of the in Yonash HaTorah Chassidus, which we learned on the essence of Chassidus. Let's continue by the number 31 in the text. Everybody's with me? Yes. Fellas, let's see a little feedback. Yeah, Shkoyach Avner. By the number 31, it's the last line. We've got the same layout, friends. The last line on the page 51. This is what it means. Again, this is what Ata Tetzave, you, Moishe Rabbeinu, Tetzave, you connect as Bnei Yisrael, Eden, with what? With the Etzem Anasham, with the Yechid. That's his whole Avodah. Then they bring to you that elevates Moishe. That's without that, his whole being is. If we're not going to respond to this and allow and work, because it's allowed the Rebbe to do what he's doing in us and within us, but that takes work and opening up to and allow the Etzem and Neshama expression, then Moishe has failed. Like the Rebbe said, it's all the heaven of Alarik, despite every extraordinary achievement. It's not going to touch the essence and therefore everything. Give it all we got. It falls short. He said stronger with level of Alarik of everything he is and is striving for and doesn't give up on and never will. And isn't. On the contrary, he's working harder than he ever, that's possible to say, but On some level, that's what it is. When the Rebbe was here with us, so he slept 2 or 3 hours a night, whatever that means, sleep for a tzaddik, for a Rebbe, we don't know, but it's some level of rest. 31 years, this was taken from him also. Not even that. And he's not in Gan Eden. Gan Eden for the Rebbe is torture. If Mashiach didn't come and is still suffering in this world, it doesn't seduce him. It's Siberia for him. It's being banished. According to the Rebbe, that the feeding Rebbe in the early years, Tavshin Dalaf, one of the Fabringers, the Rebbe said someone was referred to the Rebbe. They were actually referring to, I'm sorry, to the previous Rebbe. And they said, Nishmas Eden, in paradise. The Rebbe said, why are you giving addresses? How do you know where he is? And besides, why are you banishing him to Siberia? So he said, Siberia. He's here with us. I mean, what a tzaddik says about another tzaddik, no one ever said such words about a previous Rebbe. No one. Nishmas Eden. He's passing about himself. And we see that his presence in the world and his presence, the oil, people going to the oil, and his teachings becoming more and more sought after and popular and spread, especially now that you saw the matzah, the clarity of the Rebbe now. And he's Daniel getting the picture just before the war, and it's and 1,000 other details. We see it more and more. But what's the Rebbe's whole avoid? The avoid is megala each one of us, our pnimius and etzem and neshama, that we should live consciously with it. Learn, feel, understand, celebrate all mitzvot pnimius and neshama, because this is you. This is what you Eivishter want from me. And I'm one with you. That's V'atat itself. Let's continue. Second line from the bottom of the page. So this is the higher level of engraving that's through and through. I'm reminded, it's a very important thing, friends. This is the Rebbe, I heard this, I read it in the Zalman Posner, Olav Shalom, the legendary Shliach in Tennessee. So he writes, he said, at the Fabrengen of Cholamoid, as a Bocher, before the Rebbe was a Rebbe, so the Rebbe instructed him to make a Fabrengen Cholamoid for the Bnei Yeshivas, Simchas Beis Shaiva, the extraordinary Fabrengens. Label Grona describes one that took a lot of mashka there. It was hours long and deep in Yonim. It was signs all over New York City for Bnei Yeshivas. It's Ben Asmanim, so Cholamit Chukas. Anyway, so one year the Rebbe said like this: the Chazal say on the pasuk Kel Doidi Doifek, the voice of my beloved knocks. Piskoli Kechodesh Amachad. Eibishter says, open up to me, just like the opening of the point of a needle. That's all. And I'll open your heart like the opening of the ulam, which was 20 cubits high, 10 ambas wide, never closed. That's the Maimon Chazal. So the Rebbe said, this is the gear. The Eibishter says, we're talking about revealing Etzem and Neshama. This seems like a beyond daunting task, friends. So the Peil Mamish, how to translate this. The Eibishter says, the Rebbe explains, open up for me at the point of a needle. Take one thing, one achlota, but it's like the needle penetrates through and through the cloth, which is what we're talking about over here. He says, making engraving in. So one thing, you start with one achlota, but that's not negotiable and it's ever. And it's b'shleimus, and that's it. And that will open You unlock the neshama in one area, the essence, it's going to suffuse sooner or later every aspect of one's life. Plus, if you would break oneself in one area, be'emes, and consistently, break myself means remove the resistance to my etzem and neshama, then it's going to filter in every aspect of my life. I'll be a nicer husband and a better father and a better friend and a better everything. A little less rough on the edge, a little less ego. And everything, my davening, pick one achlata, the Rambam, whatever it is. But that is not negotiable. Learn it properly, durch and durch, one achlata. It's transformative in one's entire life. You touch essence, there's no holding it back. Because it's the essence of everything. So let's finish the ice. This is being engraved through and through. It means through and through. It means from one end to the other, starting from the essence, the deepest part, to the most further distant expression of the soul, simple actions, words, behavior, marginal everyday behavior, just insignificant, quote unquote, interactions or moments. You look at him, you see it's a chassid. He brushes his teeth like a chassid. He ducks himself in the bathroom, a toilet like a chassid. To cite an example. But starts with the mind. The first expression after essence is the will, the seichel. In brackets. Even as he understands mitzvahs at the level of edus and mishpatim, you don't just see an intellectual, and it's beautifully expressed here, as he's learning and he's teaching and he's writing, etc. And he's a great intellectual. God gave him a good head that he's learning and he's davening and learning and he's b'machadish. But that's what you see. You don't just see an intellect, a clever fellow, a wise man, a learned person. You see that it's a likus, it's godliness that he's revealing. It's Torah that he's expressing. Like my father-in-law said, I told you many times, right, that what made him become a Lubavitcher, coming from a home that lacked for nothing, not materially, not spiritually. So one of the things was, this was the punchline when they came to the Rebbe in 1953, and the Rebbe spoke and he listened to Torah. It's the first time he's hearing, he's seeing, he's confronting, not someone who's saying a HaTorah, but it's living Torah, it's the Eibish's Torah. This is the Gzeidah Himilafana, it's God talk. He's saying the words of God. And it's now, and it's to me, and it's personal, even if he didn't understand. That's a perfect example, because he didn't understand a lot of what the Rebbe said. It was all foreign, the language, the concepts. But the sense, this he got. That it's living and it's now and it's a likus, the Eibishter. He didn't see a brilliant rabbi sitting there expounding on Kabbalah and Talmud. He heard the word of God, totally beyond all understanding. And he said, I'm staying here. I'm staying here in Lubavitch. Good morning, guys. We're just concluding the next few words, but I know you're following this too. Because once you touch essence, it's going to manifest in all manifestations, including intellect. It's a different intellect. It's a different love. It's a different fear. It's a different desire. It's a different joy. That's h'tשכ, the highest level. All right, friends. Good morning, everybody. You're all welcome to continue as we continue our Tmuz. The Rebbe's Yahrzeit, which is this Motzei Shabbos, Sunday.